Hello, everyone. Welcome. I want to just thank you for being here and thank you for being part of the Hello Alice small business community. I hope everyone's having a beautiful day. As I give everyone a couple moments to trickle in, I want to start off by introducing myself. So my name is Jenee. I'm coming at you from Miami, Florida. And I have the privilege of serving as the manager of engagement and social media at Hello Alice. So I'm the lucky one that gets to engage and speak to you, our growing community of small business owners here at Hello Alice. And if you're new here, welcome to Wonderland. So I'll tell you a little bit about Hello Alice, because maybe you were sent this link by a friend, maybe you signed up via social media. So want to make sure that you know all about Hello Alice. So Hello Alice is a free digital platform, helloalice.com, that helps entrepreneurs like you navigate the wonderland of entrepreneurship. So how do we do that? We get to know our small business owners and we offer them the learning tools, resources, mentoring, community, and access to money that they need. So essentially, it's anything that you need to launch and grow your small business. And I want to make sure that if you don't have an account on helloalice.com, you're now permitted to go do that. So you can run along and go create an account on helloalice.com, open up another tab, grab your phone or tablet. It takes a couple seconds. It is completely free. And it is the only way that you can fully unlock all of our resources. So if you already have an account on helloalice.com, thanks for joining this webinar. If you don't, make sure that you do so right now or right after this webinar so that you can make sure to unlock all of our amazing resources. And before we get started on our content for today, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you all on behalf of Team Hello Alice. If you're here, if you're listening and watching today, you're a small business owner yourself, or definitely a strong supporter. And we need you to know that it's your resilience, your optimism, your ideas that are empowering people in your community and really keeping the US economy going that inspires us at Team Hello Alice. So thank you so much. So our goal is to be your guiding light. We want to be on your path right alongside you as you go through the small business ownership journey. And on this mission, we're listening. So we hear you. We hear you when you say, I can't apply for a small business grant. The process is too complicated and I definitely don't have time. I'm running a small business. We hear you when you say that the process is way too overwhelming and complicated. And we hear you when you say, why am I going to go through all of that? I'm not going to get the money anyways, or someone else deserves this money far more than I do. And that's exactly why we're here today and exactly why we put this content together for you. So today we have Jenee Fortier, who is my amazing coworker and the head of grants administration at Hello Alice. And she's got the best podcast voice. So you guys are in for a treat today. She's the best person to listen to all day. So you're going to love her tips. So she is going to be diving into the topic and getting you comfortable with the grant process so that you can apply with confidence and know what you're doing and offer some strategies to overcome those doubts and apply with confidence. Now, on to some housekeeping. You can definitely use the chat today to speak with other participants. And it's right down there. You'll see the chat bubble. So you can click on that and the chat will pop up and you can engage with other people that are here with us today. And we'll definitely be using the chat to share some great links with you. Our other colleague, Jillian Fortin, will be sharing some specific links that we want you to have. So we'll use those in the chat. But if you'd like to ask a question, and we know you have lots of those and we hope you ask them, make sure that you use the Q&A bubble. So again, down here, you'll see that Q&A bubble. You want to click on that and another window will open up so that you can ask your questions. Now, this is the absolute best way to make sure that we see your questions. And we'll even be asking some of you to join us up on stage to ask Jenee your question live. So make sure that you use that Q&A bubble. And now I will introduce Jenee Fortier. So Jenee has 9 years of experience specializing in grants and program administration in the public sector. She has managed multi-million-dollar federal, state, and local grant funding, serving both victims of crime and those suffering from mental health or substance use disorders. Most recently, Jenee held various positions at the county government level in California, where she led initiatives and programs aimed at improving the lives of individuals and families impacted by the criminal justice system. So Jenee, please take it away.
Thank you so much, Danielle. I'm super excited to be here. Let's just jump right in. I'm going to master technology today, and maybe, there we go. I assume that, can you see my screen now?
Yes, we absolutely can. And before you get started, I would like to share with everyone that Jenee will, as part of her presentation, be using this really, really cool engagement tool, Menti, which she'll talk through that. But I just want to point out that it's a really great engagement tool, and we encourage you to follow along. If you don't want to engage by opening up another window, or you can use your phone or tablet, no worries, you don't have to, it's not required, and you'll totally still be able to follow along with the presentation, but just wanted to point that out before she gets there. All right, Jenee, back to you.
Perfect segue, because actually you gave me a lovely introduction. Thank you so much. I'm never good at talking about myself, so it's best to let someone else do it. So I want to learn a little bit more about you all, and so we're going to do that quickly through Menti. So if you're able to, if you can pull up your phone or your tablet, or you have a computer, you can open up a new tab. If you can go to www.menti.com, it's going to ask you for this code 8160-5983. And what you should see is this, so the welcome screen. And at the top of this page also is the same. So at any point in time, if you log in, you come back, or you forget, the code is right up there at the top. But I would like to get to know you all a little better. So is it GIF as in giraffe, GIF as in garage? Are you a people pleaser and you say both? Or what's that? So you should be able to start voting, and we're going to see the live results. I'm really excited. Uh-oh, it looks like GIF is winning, and I have to tell you, I'm a GIFer. This is making my day right now. I'm so excited. Oh, we're getting too close. Now I'm getting nervous. Guys, it's GIF as in garage. I just need you to know. I like waiting with bated breath. I know we have folks still voting. This is a really tight race. And
a couple of people pleasers.
There are a couple of people pleasers, which I can appreciate. I can appreciate that. Okay. Well, I don't want to be biased and shut this down because it's getting close. And then people are going to say Jenee chose GIF because she prefers garage. Wow. I didn't think this was going to be so close.
Neck and neck now.
Like, we're obviously here for grants. I'm going to get to grants, I promise. This is so tight. Oh, I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. We'll get back to the results. But now tell me, how strongly do you feel about someone mispronouncing this word? So if you say GIF and you feel really strongly about it, you're going to take your scale and put it at I will die on this hill. If you're like, it's not that important to me, you're going to stay under. It's literally not a big deal. Oh, interesting. So people actually don't feel very strongly about this. So this is not a divisive issue. Okay.
I'm glad we're getting to the bottom of it.
This is very important. Okay. Well, I appreciate that our audience here is really flexible and understanding. They have a preferred way of saying a word, but they understand that there are more important things in life than whether or not someone pronounces it GIF or JIF. Fantastic. On to our next one. Okay, so now, have you ever applied for a grant for your business before? A simple yes or no. And because we care about data here, I have bisected the responses by how you prefer to pronounce GIF or JIF. I was curious to see if we could find any trends in the data. Interesting. We're pretty evenly split, but I'm surprised. Let me get this up. So there's a good chunk of you who haven't applied for a grant before, which is really interesting. So then I think that's good for us to sort of think about as we're moving forward and understanding what experience you might have in applying for grants as you're here listening today. And I'm not seeing any significant trends. It seems like whether or not you pronounce it as GIF or GIF, or don't even know what that is, there doesn't seem to be much of a difference in your likelihood of applying for a grant. So that's good to know too. So the last Mentee activity to get us all sort of oriented before we dive into the data is I just want to do a little gauging, a little pre-test. If you could respond with your confidence in your ability right now today in understanding a grant application, completing a grant application, and receiving a grant award. So how confident are you? Are you like, I totally understand a grant application. I could pull one up today. I could read it. I could understand it and I would apply. Heck yeah, or no way. If you found that application and you going through it and completing it, you felt really strongly that you would be able to do that right now, this very moment. And how strongly do you feel about your ability to receive that grant award? You're really confident. You've won them in the past. You know you can do it again. And you're just here to hang out with us because you love seeing Hello Alice employees. I'm going to give that just a couple more seconds. Great. Okay, so that's really, I'm sure I should probably write this down. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for entertaining me for the first couple of minutes of this presentation. And now maybe we should get into why we're really here, right? So we're here because you all have told us, and we know that raising capital and finding loans and whatever kind of capital that might be for you is difficult, hard to find, hard to get. And it's overwhelming for a lot of folks, right? But I would argue that so is starting and managing a business, right? That to me is incredibly overwhelming. I would have absolutely no idea where to begin, how to move forward, and would probably be pretty stifled by my anxiety with that. So I just want to tell you that you might feel the same way about me and my role and my job and all of the grants that I have applied for or managed. But I think about it a little bit differently because I have the experience and I have the right tools and the right mindset. Right? So my point is just that each one of you absolutely has the tools and the mindset and what it takes to submit a successful grant application. It's really about just sitting down and understanding and preparing yourself and being organized. And I don't know if you have noticed this yet, but I might have gone a little overboard on the organizing theme for this presentation, right? So I think that the most important piece here is that just from the Hello Alice perspective, there are over 3,000 other business owners that serve as proof of this concept, that it absolutely made it through the grant application process. And I just want you to know that we're here to help because you can do it too. That sounded really motivational. Yeah, you can do it too. So these are some of the things that we've heard, right? It's too complicated. I just don't have the time. I'll apply next time. I'm not going to be selected anyways. Others need the money more. That one we hear a lot, right? So why don't we just take a couple of minutes to sort of dive in on what these things mean and why we say them and how we can get to yes. So it's complicated. Well, then let's start at the basics, just like you would if you were starting your business. When you have an idea, a seed of an idea, what do? You dissect it. So we open up our It's Too Complicated folder and we've got this nice little diagram. So let's think, have you read the brief in full? Is a grant application in front of you? Have you read it? Or have you just sort of your eyes have glazed over and you're like, I can't even. So if you've read it, yes. Are you eligible? And that's a very simple yes or no. Read through the eligibility criteria. No. Okay. Don't worry about it. Don't stress yourself out about this application. Move on. But if you are eligible, then start looking at the next pieces. Do you have the required pieces available? Can you get them? Yes or no? If it's a simple yes, which I hope everyone can sort of follow the yes path here, then you have what it takes. You can do this. And we're going to talk about how you can. But if you don't, and if you haven't read the brief, can you carve out 15 to 20 minutes of your time to sit down and read and write down your own questions? Can you put it on your calendar? Literally read X grant application. If you can't, do you have a team member who can help you? Do you have people? Do you have family, the other folks that are in this business relationship with you? Can they sit down and spend those 15 or 20 minutes to help you understand, write down their questions and get you oriented? No. If you don't, well, it sounds to me like you need the financial support for staffing. So my request to you is find the 15 or 20 minutes, read through the grant application, understand just if you're eligible, right? Just the first step. And then think about what next steps you need to take, because I believe that you have what it takes to do this. So we're going to recycle this folder. We don't need it. I hope everyone is really impressed with my very skilled graphics. Okay, I can't see your faces, but I know you're all going, ooh, and ah, right? Great. Okay. So now we've come back to our next folder. I just don't have the time. Well, let's really think about that. Do you like math? I know you're all saying yes. So what is an hour of your time worth? Like, really think about this from a cost benefit ratio, right? I think that that's important too, because there are some grants that may truly be not worth your time. So what is an hour of your time worth? If you have no idea, that's okay. I'll make one up for you. Let's say it's $100, or maybe you feel confidently enough in yourself that an hour of your time is worth $100. So let's say it were to take you 10 hours to complete a grant application. So at a rate of $100 an hour, that's $1,000. So you could invest $1,000 of your time. Is this grant award worth, there we go, more than $1,000? If yes, then I think that the cost benefit sort of ratio there might be in your favor. I would recommend applying for the grant. However, it is very likely that a grant could take way more hours than that. And if it's only a $2,000, a $5,000, or $10,000 grant, I think you should have that discussion. And you can think about where your time can be spent. And if it's not your time, then think about someone else's time. And I don't mean necessarily hiring a grant writer, right? You don't need to do that. Some of the other ways that you could negotiate, which we'll talk about in a later slide, is finding your community, finding your network, finding folks who can help you. But it's a relevant, I think, and a worthwhile exercise. So whether or not you like math, think you should do a cost benefit analysis. Think about how much your time is worth and whether or not it's this particular grant, the dollar amount that you might receive is going to be a valuable investment for you. And if you don't like math and you've never done cost benefit analysis in your role as a business owner, then might I suggest you take a little gander at the Hello Alice guides to see if there's some educational material that you might benefit from. But I think that we've hammered this nail in. So why don't we recycle this folder and move on to our next. Another doubt that I hear often is, I'm not going to be selected anyway, so why bother? Well, have you filled out the application? No, then, there's a good chance you might not be selected, right? So let's not let that stop us right off the bat. Are you planning on filling out the grant application? Yes. Do you need money to attain your business goals? I'm guessing yes. So if just by following that simple sort of logic path, you have a much better chance than the thousands of other people who didn't apply, right? So if you haven't filled out the application and you aren't planning on filling it out, then of course, this is a very valid concern. Maybe now isn't the right time. But I really recommend that you take that time, you think about how much your time is worth, finding those couple of minutes to really understand if you're eligible or if you're not, and give it a good faith effort. So if you filled the application out and you gave it a good faith effort and you explained exactly what you would do with this money, there's no reason to believe that you would not be selected. Right. And I think that is really a fear that is a bit unfounded if you're planning on taking the time to really invest in submitting this grant application. And if you're not, then of course, then that's a valid concern and maybe now isn't the right time. But if you're going to fill it out, if you're going to give it a good faith effort and you explain exactly what you're doing with this money, then maybe it's time to go ahead and recycle this fear. And then our next one, I hear a lot, others need the money more, right? I think we all experience this in different ways in our careers, a kind of imposter syndrome, right? Where we think that, no, I can do this. I can hack it on my own. I know someone else is in a worse position than I am. But that never should discount your specific needs, your goals, and your dreams, right? So in this path of thinking, do you have a business? Yes. Are you passionate about what you do? Yes. Do you have goals and dreams about your future and your success? Yes. then please hear me when I say to you, everyone is deserving of financial support to make their dreams come true. And it is not about, this is not a scale. It is not that you are more deserving than someone else or someone else is more deserving than you. It's all contextual. It's all based on your experience, your needs, your specific goals. And so there's absolutely no reason to let that stop you in your tracks, right? So if you have a business, if you are passionate about it, if you have goals and dreams, and you are eligible for that grant, I absolutely want you to rethink and reconsider this and go ahead and apply. If anything else, what it's going to do is allow you to really dive deep on your own business model. It gives you the opportunity to stretch some of those legs, do a little bit of writing, maybe out of that grant application that you then have some marketing materials. You've now got some posts for social media. Maybe now you've got some things to put in your email, your newsletter, or on your website. So there's still going to get something out of the application process, whether or not you're selected. So maybe I'll just say this one more time. Everyone is deserving of financial support to make their dreams come true. So we're going to recycle this one. Wow, look at that empty folder. So now that we have addressed all of our challenges and doubts and we've gotten ourselves to yes, why don't we do a quick little activity? So this is from a pull out one of my motivational interviewing guides. So this is called decisional balance. So anytime that I'm faced with a tough decision, like it can be, usually this is related to acting or change, behavior change. So thinking about stopping smoking or exercising more or moving. Rather than making a simple pro-con list, which is sometimes a little too binary, a little black and white, life is more complicated than that. I prefer to use decisional balance. So it's more of a matrix. So this idea of acting, so doing the thing. So in this case, applying for the grant, or an easier one to sort of contextualize is exercising. So what are the disadvantages of exercising? What will it cost you? So in that case, it'll cost me time. It might cost me my comfort. Maybe it's going to be pretty painful. And then what are the advantages of exercising? What will you gain? So I would gain probably my health. Maybe it would make me less tired. I would gain more energy, more sustain. I would be able to sustain my hours. I would be able to really connect more deeply with myself. And maybe it would help stress relief. And so then the flip side of that is makes you think really critically about the decision that you're going to make is not doing that thing. So what are the disadvantages of not doing in this case, of not exercising? So what will you lose? And so I would sort of go back to health, right? So thinking about the ways in which that will impact my health versus the advantages of not doing the thing. So not the advantages of not exercising, what you hold on to. And probably, again, it's a sort of a slight take, a twist on thinking about your time and your focus and the kinds of things that you'll be able to keep that you currently have, which in this case is sort of, I would continue to sort of wallow maybe in my own sort of self-pity. And then when you look at it that way, it's like, well, that's not really an advantage actually. So it just helps you to think a little bit differently about the pros and cons list. So I want to do that with you all. What will it cost you to apply for a grant? So this is free form, so you can just type in and share whatever you you think. So we're back at Mentee. So mentee.com, and my code is blocked by my Zoom thingy, 81605983. What will it cost you? I see a lot of time. Absolutely, time is valuable. So that's exactly what you're all thinking. Or the dollar amount. That's a really good point. It could cost you dollars. It could, if you're going to pay someone to write it for you, or your time is worth something. But this is really interesting. I'm seeing only time. And so maybe that's what we really need to think about and address, which is finding ways to find that time for you, right? It's not scrolling. I wonder why. Well, I assume that it's continuing to, got a weird little bug there. Maybe I didn't select the right box. But overwhelmingly, I'm hearing time. And I think that is, once you identify the problem, right, you can then solution for it. So finding time is what you need to do. And I know that sounds overwhelming, but if you're like me and you live your life by your calendar, then I think that sometimes it's just taking a few minutes to literally put it into your calendar, right? Every single day. The same thing I do for medication, like making sure I take time to take my medication or take a walk, literally putting it in my calendar, take a walk. Sometimes I even feel like I need to put in TV time on my calendar to make sure I allow myself to become a vegetable. But time is the overwhelming response here. Okay, let's think differently now. What will you gain by applying for a grant? I think there's probably the obvious one, right? Which is money. Yeah, I see if there's money is coming in, money. But look, hope and possibility, experience. That is such a good point. Even if you remembering that just because you apply for a grant one time and you don't get it, there's no reason to stop there, because you now have the experience and the ability to apply for the next one. Or you've got the narrative responses, you've got the documents, you have the things that you need to use in all kinds of other scenarios beyond just applying for a grant. There could be other kinds of funding opportunities, right? But other ways that you might need folks to help you in your business. And I love this one, better understanding of my business. We're gonna, and through the grant process, we're gonna ask you some really key questions that maybe you never thought of before. Or maybe in the process of explaining your business, you start to think a little bit differently about it and wonder, why aren't I doing X? Or maybe I've discovered this gap. So I think that is such a great perspective to have, those two ones, the experience that you're going to get from it and the understanding that you're going to learn about your business. Obviously, money is the most important one. That's exactly why you're applying for a grant, right? Because there's a need there, and winning a grant would help to fill that need. But I think it's important to remember that there's a lot more that you're going to gain from the opportunity. Confidence, capital and confidence. I love the alliteration. I'm gonna write that one down, capital and confidence.
There's another great one in the chat that says recognition and knowing someone believes in you.
Oh, I love that. That's perfect. Yeah, the hope. And I saw something else too about hope and then funding for my dreams. The recognition, right? Especially if, that's a really good point too. It's not even about necessarily that whether or not you, if you're the one that receives the grant, but someone on the other end is reading your application, right? And that person might see your website. And then that reviewer, I've done this. I've been reviewing grant applications. I came across someone who didn't ultimately win the grant, but I felt compelled enough to go to their website and buy something off one of their products. So it's not even necessarily, it's a great way, if you want to think about it as customer user acquisition, think about all the people that are reading and reviewing your application, learning about your business now, and taking the opportunity to learn more about you could convert into a customer. So there's another really great opportunity and reason to apply for a grant. Great. So I want to make sure we have time to get to our tips. So we did our mentee activity. So now we've gone through sort of addressing our challenges or doubts. You've been able to verbalize them. We've talked through some of the solutions, and we've given you some more sort of ideas and tools to think about using that decisional balance worksheet to think about whether or not you want to apply for a grant. Hopefully you don't have to, because I think the answer should be yes. The answer should always be yes if you're eligible. But let's say you found it, you're eligible, and now you're ready to apply. So let's think about what we need to do to get ourselves organized to do that. And hopefully, Danielle, if someone mentions that I'm talking too fast, please let me know. I just want to make sure that we cover some of these last pieces. So in our
slow it down just a little bit.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. In our sort of organization wheel, we're going to start at, do I meet the eligibility criteria? I know it's a very, maybe it seems like an obvious question, but sometimes it's absolutely worth asking. Before you even begin, you're looking at a grant application that could be 20, 30, 40 pages long. Before you overwhelm yourself with all of the attachments and links and needs, start very basic. Do I meet the eligibility criteria? And if you do, cool. Let's move on to step 2. Is there mission alignment? And I put this as the next one because I think it's really important. Just because you're eligible for a grant doesn't mean that you have to apply or always should apply. This happens often in the nonprofit world, right? or we start to, you might hear about mission drift, but I see it happen in the business sector as well, where we start to reach, we want money from this person, so maybe we need to modify a product slightly to meet their needs, and now maybe we want money from this person, they want us to work in this particular market, so maybe we need to shift our thinking and look only at places in this location. So not even from a very basic black and white kind of alignment, but do you believe in what they stand for, and do they believe in what you stand for? Is this a grant that's about promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion? Is it about sustainability? Do you align fundamentally with this organization that's giving the money? And you know, we'd maybe don't always have the luxury of being able to be choosy about where our money comes from, but I think it's really important to think about those things and prepare yourself to what might happen on the back end as we get around to steps 4 and 5, right? So is there a mission alignment? 3, have I read all the FAQs? You can learn so much in the frequently asked questions, especially for government grants, because they are required to post questions and answers as they come in, as people submit. They're asking for clarifying things that weren't super clear in the eligibility criteria or in the requirements for the grant. So they'll collect all those questions, and at certain dates, they will post them up publicly. And Hello Alice does that too. Other grant administrators might as well. You can learn a lot from the FAQs. I highly recommend you always read them. The next thing to consider is, will the payment model work with my business plan? And I say that because many government programs are going to be reimbursement based, right? So it's, you have to provide the service or the product you're performing, and then you're submitting documentation and proof that you did those things, and then you're getting reimbursed for them. So if you don't have the cash flow to be able to do that, it's something that you need to be aware of. Same thing with foundation money. Maybe you've applied for $100,000 and you were awarded it, but they're not going to give you cut you a check for $100,000. It could come in what they call tranches or multiple disbursements, so that you might get 4 payments of $25,000. So these are all things that are really important for you to know as you're going into that grant application, to prepare yourself for whether or not you can, your business can sustain whatever that model might be. And then the last one is, are there additional reporting requirements? So think about this long term too. Understand, is this, a lot of the Hello Alice grants are, you apply for $10,000, you get a check for $10,000, and that's it. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for you to get the funding that you've requested, right? And not to say that other ways aren't the right way to do it, or that they're not, they're equally as uncumbersome, but there could be reporting requirements, especially if you've entered into a contract with a government entity. For example, you've received a grant from a federal or state agency. There could be monthly reporting requirements on data, on financials. It could be quarterly. You could have biannual narrative reports that you have to submit. So really just get into it knowing what the expectations are, so that you have the staffing to be able to support all of those things. And so these are sort of the 5 major things I would think of. If you can say, okay, yes, I'm fine with all of these things, then it's the right grant for you. But these are the ways that I think that you should sort of, the questions you consider before you get too deep down that rabbit hole. So the next most important thing after you've decided all of that, I tell everyone, this is my trick. This is what I do anytime I'm applying for a grant. I go straight to the review criteria, because if I'm going to whatever I submit, I want to know and ensure is exactly what the reviewers are looking at, and I want to know what they're looking for. So criteria, right? So here's an example. This is a notice of funding opportunity from the U.S. Department of Commerce. And you can see in the table of contents here under E, they had application review information. So I went and I clicked on review and selection process. And so for this one, you'll notice it says each criteria receives equal weight. So unfortunately, that means you're going to have to really hit every single one of these individually, or else you're going to lose points. So when you're writing your narrative, you always want to keep these things in mind and use their exact words. So, and as an example, the degree of economic distress experienced in the project community. So you want to be able to speak specifically to the degree of economic distress experienced in the named community. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's one example. Here's another one. This was from the Community Navigator Pilot Program and a Notice of Funding Opportunity. So when I participated in helping write one of these grants, for example, and so this one gives you points. So you might see this often, and a lot of them coming out of the SBA do. It tells you exactly the project objectives are going to be 25 points, all the way down to budget and staffing plan. It's going to be 15 points. So in this case, I want to make sure that my project objective is really on point. Because I don't want to leave any points on the table. Whereas the budget and staffing plan, maybe 15 points is still significant, right? But it might be sort of on the bottom of your checklist versus really nailing the project objectives. Here's another one that you might have seen on Hello Alice, for example. So if you go down to section 7, the review or judging criteria and selection, we always list here, the reviewers are going to be checking on demonstrated need for funds to recover from the impacts of COVID-19. So when you're filling out your narrative, are you demonstrating your need for money to recover from the impacts of COVID-19? In this case, what the most heavily weighted question was related to clarity and feasibility of plan for proposed use of funds. So what are you going to do with that money? Is it clear? And this is going to weigh most heavily when we're looking at reviewing applications. And then the last one, this one is from NIH, I think, so the National Cancer Institute. This one was, let's see, section 5, application review information. So I scrolled all the way down here, and looks like there was no weighting, so probably it does say that they're going to give a separate score for each, but it's not clear which one. So this one is a bit more complicated, right? So just sort of think about that as you're going through. Does this look like something that you might be able to handle? Do you have time to submit an application like this? Because they're asking a lot of questions. Like, they want to know about you? Does the candidate have the potential to develop as an independent and productive researcher? So they want to know all about you. And then they want to know about the service that you're providing, the likelihood that your plan will contribute substantially to the scientific development. So this one is super complicated, but these criteria are what you can use to help craft your narrative statements. Great. And then after you understand the criteria and you're really ready to write, what are the things that you need? And so I tell folks, like, you should have some folders on your desktop or somewhere in your drive with some of these key things. You should always have them. So the most important one is narrative. And the way that you can get at this, right, is by applying for a grant so that you have some samples to choose from and craft and keep as templates. But I tell everyone that mission, vision, and value statements are not just for nonprofits. I think everyone should take, even for yourself, you can have a personal mission, vision, and value statement. And just go ahead and you can do that today. Start crafting those. Pull up a Word document or something somewhere, sticky notes on your wall, one for mission, vision, and value. Because that's going to be really critical when you're evaluating, like what we talked about at the beginning, sort of step 2, is their mission alignment with this particular grant opportunity. And you can pull up your own mission, vision, and values, the things that guide you and who you are, what you do, what your business stands for. Is there alignment? But then also it's really great sort of elevator pitches. Like your mission can be your elevator pitch for yourself, something that you're going to copy and paste and throw all over the place so that we know exactly what your business is, what it does, and what it stands for. And you can craft those things and hone them over time. So that one is really important. The other one is data. You should know something, anything. Numbers wow people, right? Like we had all those great numbers about GIFs and GIFs, and it was a very silly activity, but it gave us really valuable data. And like this next slide where we looked at the likelihood of someone applying for a grant or having applied for a grant or not based on the way that they pronounced GIF or GIF. It's silly, but it would pop, it's meaningful, it's impactful. So a good example is like for Hello Alice, we know that the biggest challenge right now for small business owners is raising capital or finding loans. So I'm able to make that connection, right? I know that what is that, 36% of Hello Atlas users rate raising capital or finding loans is their biggest challenge right now. So in order to meet that need, we have developed these webinars and tools to help them access capital and find loans, right? So those are really important ways that you demonstrate that you know your business in and out, you know your customers, and you know how to link those to your key goals. The next one is budget. So you should always keep a budget template handy, and I recommend $24. I recommend you consider having them in your fringe benefits. So that means your healthcare and benefit costs, travel, equipment, supplies, contracts, construction, other. So, you delete ones you don't need, keep the ones you do, but it's just a very simple sort of starting point as a budget tool to be able to use and organize yourself. And then the last one that I say is staff. Make sure you have a folder of resumes and bios of your key staff, because funders want to know about the experience of your team. They want to know that they're giving money to a group of folks who can really sustain this business, who know what they're doing. And they're always going to ask you about who's your right-hand person, your left-hand person, who's in charge of X and Y. And so if you have those bios and resumes handy, all you have to do is just turn around or send a link to a folder and you have it right there. So my final thoughts on this are, when we're thinking about organized, is really thinking a little bit backwards. So this is sort of like a modified logic model. So think about your goals. You've established your mission, vision, and values. What are your goals as a business owner? What specific activities do you need to accomplish to get to those goals? And what resources do you need to accomplish those activities? So pull up some sticky notes, have a single goal. What are the activities related to that goal? And what are the resources that you need in order to accomplish those activities? And those sticky notes become your grant application, right? So now I know that I need $10,000 to purchase this machine so that I can ramp up production of this particular product of mine by this date so that I can accomplish this goal. And now you have a very clear and consistent line for a grant reviewer to go in, read that question. You've hit all of your criteria. I have a very clear understanding of why you need this money to achieve this goal for your business. And I'm going to choose you when I'm selecting my recipients. Oh man. So I think I will say one last thing, which is sort of in sum, what I think I want you to walk away with from here is to be disciplined. So we're talking about goals, activities, resources that you need. Be very disciplined. It's very easy in this world. You're all incredible, capable, amazing humans with bright and brilliant ideas. And it's easy to follow all those squirrels, right? I do it all the time. I have so many great ideas. Well, I think they're great. The things that I want to do, but you can't stretch yourself so thin because you're not going to be able to be successful fully, or you could be a superhuman. Maybe you're able to do all of the things. I would venture to guess that you've probably let your own health and well-being fall to the wayside if you're someone that does that. But it's really important to be disciplined because it's going to come through in your grant application. And I'm really going to want to be able to see clearly thought out this idea. I need these resources to accomplish these things for this particular goal. And so that gets into the organization piece, right? So if you're able to keep yourself organized in all those different pieces, have some of these folders just ready to go, some of those 4 things that I talked about that every grant application is going to ask you for, it allows you to be disciplined. And then accuracy. Maybe it sounds silly to say, but you should always be double checking, reading again, have someone else read for you, because it's very easy for us to see what we want to see or see what we said in our brains. I do it all the time. There's also, I was going to put up this funny, there's a study that demonstrates that as long as for English speakers, at least, if there's a word that starts and ends with its letter, like horse starts with H, ends in E, if you mix up the ORS in the middle, our brain still sees horse. So I say that because you're writing out this whole narrative, you have this idea, maybe you don't have a lot of time, and you might have made a ton of typos. And not to say that a typo is going to get you disqualified, but I think it's really important to let someone else read it for you, because they can also not only catch those grammatical mistakes, but they're going to ask questions, and that's okay. It's okay if they have questions, because they're meant to help make you better, make your business better, help you to understand how to communicate what's in your head to someone else on paper. And it's really important. Don't give us, grant reviewers, any excuse to deny your application, right? Make sure your phone number is correct, that your email address is there, that your tax ID is there appropriately, that you've selected yes to all if you agree to them, like agreeing to the terms and conditions, agreeing to share your application. Really make sure that you or someone else is going through to do that, because make my job so hard. Make sure that I have 10,000 applications that are all eligible to review, and don't let me disqualify you just because of a mistake like that, right? So the last thing that I want to do then is, let's try this again. Now, everything that you learned today about being disciplined and organized and accurate, about your goals, activities, and resources, and we're back to mentee. Tell me, what do you think? How confident are you in your ability to understand a grant application, complete a grant application, and receive a grant award? And you don't have to make me feel better. I want you to be honest about this if you're still here with us right now, because this helps us to improve the resources that we provide to you, the webinars that we bring to you, the information that we share. We're here to help you be better, do better, and be successful. So let us know, what do you think?
And I'd like to add that we're going to be using your feedback today and encourage you to continue sharing your feedback on what you want us to cover next, because today is just the beginning. We're hoping for this to be the start of an ongoing series to help you navigate the world of small business grants. So we have plans to talk about telling your story, all to explain the different types of small business grants that are out there and how to find them. So this feedback is great for us to get you the help that you need. And also, of course, always want to point out our small business grants hub that's on our new funding center. And Jillian's been sharing that link in the chat throughout Jenee's presentation today. So make sure to check that out immediately and see all of the open grant opportunities that Hello Alice is hosting and other ones that we have found for you across the web.
Oh man, I did it with 12 minutes to spare.
You did it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jenee. You are amazing. And I'm sure you're getting lots of raves in the chat about how awesome this presentation has been. And we have lots and lots of questions. So we'll dive right into those. We have Rachel that is on stage with us right now. So Rachel, I'll ask you to, thank you. You turned on your camera and Rachel's here to ask her question. So Rachel.
Hi, thanks for the great presentation, Jenee. I am a theater maker, and I have some experience in the nonprofit world writing grants. Over the course of the pandemic, I started an entrepreneurial endeavor, and we're starting to look at businesses. We've started creating online dinners where people can meet and eat and connect together. And we're interested in expanding this to a business potential to work with remote teams all over the country. And so we've started applying for business grants, but we haven't been very successful. And I'm wondering, is there a difference in language or tactic in applying for nonprofit grants versus applying for business grants?
Oh, that's interesting. Can you, did you mention your business model? Are you a 501c3 or social enterprise or low profit, no profit?
Yeah, currently we're 501c3 status umbrellaed under Fractured Atlas.
Got it. So, so a good example would be a lot of the Hello Alice grants are not like nonprofits are not eligible. So it could be a very simple eligibility criteria situation where you're just getting sort of knocked out because of that. I would also think about the vertical focus in a sense of some of the different places where you might be applying for grants. We at Hello Alice is a good example with some of our partners. They might really be that it might appear to be open to everyone, but there could be a preference for a specific industry, like maybe it's food and beverage, or maybe it's, and sometimes it is arts and entertainment. And so just, there are some things that you have to kind of read between the lines on with some of these grant opportunities. Look at the funding entity and look at maybe some of the focus, whatever their focal industries are, like if it's criminal justice or arts and entertainment. And so see if there's a fit there, because that could be part of the issue. I wonder if sometimes it might be that because you're a nonprofit, you're just getting automatically disqualified for some of the business grants. And then in both cases, it's extremely competitive, right? So I think that applying some of these tactics, there's absolutely no harm in reaching out to the entity, if you haven't done this yet, to ask if you could get any feedback about your grant application. Some of them will be willing to share if it's a government agency, they're required to share the review scores. So you can get your review sheets back, or you can ask for it very informally. You should always try that. It's hey, I understand if you can't share specifics, or if you can't give me my exact score, but I would really appreciate, in order to improve my grant odds for next time, could you share a little bit of feedback for me? And someone should be willing to do that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, Rachel. Okay, Jenee, next up we have Miguel Martinez, who is joining us on stage. Just sent him a message to turn on his camera. There you are, Miguel. Welcome. And Jenee, he has a question for you.
Oh, Miguel, you're muted.
Oh, you're muted, Miguel, sorry.
Thank you. Okay, good. Okie doke. So my biggest thing is that I've just kind of disheartening. So I'm looking for techniques, because I've kind of gotten some third party, just kind of unofficial feedback as so we've been applying for grants. We've got a CPG company, a grooming products company, Natural, that serves a great need. We've got market acceptance, and it's particularly specifically for men of color with wavy and curly textured hair. Okay, Natural prestige line versus the stuff that you see on the shelf at Walmart. Now, we've gained market acceptance, but when I'm applying for these grants, it appears anything that's black or brown, when I look at it at the end, it appears that either they're picking the techie companies, maybe CPG is not sexy enough for them despite the need and despite our need. And then also there seems to be an undertone that that money is not coming to black and brown companies that are owned by men. It just, and so it's getting a bit disheartening at this point. So I'm again looking for ways or techniques or, even areas where, we can get past this.
One of the things, one thing that you can do in particular is, I should have mentioned earlier, is there's a lot of research to demonstrate this idea of telling your story, that the better able you are to connect your personal experience and being a business owner, your origin story, your needs and your passions and desires, the better able you're able to communicate that, the more likely you are to get invested in. There are a lot of articles about that with especially in like the venture capital space. So telling your story is really critical. Be personal. It's okay. Pour your heart out, kind of a thing. That's I think an immediate thing that I can tell you. The other is that there's absolutely a systemic issue in the grant making world that a lot of companies are working on addressing. Not everyone is going to have a blinded review process. There will be, we can't help there, but but they're being implicit and explicit bias. So at least on the Hello Alice end, we're working on, we remove things like applicant name, everything related to your demographic information, because we want people to stand on their own merits, on their passion behind their business, their want for growth and scale. That is not to say that every grant maker, grant entity is going to operate in the same way. I think for a lot of CPG companies, at what I've seen, and I'm not an expert, I would say, at all, but things that I'm hearing from some of our funders and partners when they want to make an investment in someone, it's really about they focus heavily on the dollars. And maybe you don't have the same kind of profit margins as a tech company might, or maybe you're very realistic about what you think your profit margins are, and tech companies fall into this category of like grandiose, insane ideas about their growth, right? Because there's this whole Silicon Valley mindset and track that folks fall into. And so if a funder is asking you those kinds of questions about what do you anticipate what's your expected 2021 or 2022 growth or revenue, there could potentially be this mismatch between you being realistic and honest and maybe a tech company saying, well, I mean, we're going to grow 4,000% by this date, kind of a thing. It wouldn't surprise me if I see those kinds of, it's anecdotally, that's what I'm thinking about here. So for you, I think it's just telling your story, being committed to that, continuing to do what you do, put yourself out there, put your applications out there, because find organizations that are mission aligned, that are actually focused on, I think you mentioned you were looking at grants that are focused on Black and Brown.
But even with that, with mission aligned, Black and Brown companies, underserved from all these communities, but yet I'm sitting back and as a male owner, like we're not getting it. And literally, like I see grants going out, and I'll do some research on the grantees, and God bless everybody who gets it. But here we are, a company that's struggling. We've gained market acceptance. We need money. The amount of these grants are not like life-changing. Yeah, they will get us from point A to point B because we need all the funding, we can. But this grant is not going to scale us, 200%, but it will provide something incrementally that will, along with everything else, will get us there. But still in all, I'm finding that, we're farther along, and, we're still like not getting the grants. And I'm looking, and again, that's why I brought up, the woman, and I'm not coming from a standpoint of jealousy, you know what I mean? I'm just coming from a standpoint that it's like men of color who are applying for these grants, and certainly me being a man of color, I'm not getting them. And I'm looking at the profile of some of the companies that are getting them, and I'm going, what's the disconnect? Like, what is it that we're not presenting, or, whether it's, the right terminology, the right words, how am I going to stick into a box, with a narrative with 500 characters maximum, that's going to really bring it home.
Yeah, and I think that there's absolutely a lot to be said for in issues around equity, whether that's related to race and ethnicity or gender, right? And so I think that's a whole other discussion that we could get into. I will say, my tips are going to continue to be to tell your story, be personal, to not obviously take it personally when you're not affected, when you're not chosen as a grant recipient. Continue to call things out as you see them. There's absolutely no, I think all funders need to be held accountable for the decisions that they make. So when you're finding these scenarios, I think you can engage in a discussion around those to bring awareness to the issue. If you have time, I also recognize that takes a lot out of people to constantly be calling it out, right? But you're doing that here today, which I appreciate. And we would take that into consideration in our grant making as well. And then there was another thing that I was going to tell you.
Take a deep breath.
All right, it'll come back to me. I'll shout it out.
Yeah, thanks. And just a quick question. If I have questions or moving forward or anything like that, is there any way, or who, maybe can I reach out to you guys to be like, hey, can I get some help here on this grant? Or it's hard to, like, you can't really share, you can't copy and share all your questions from the grant, but I don't know if there's some way that, I can do that or communicate it so that you guys could maybe look and go, hey, Miguel, maybe word it this way.
I
Yes.
would recommend that you put those in one of the communities on Hello Alice. So if there's a grant
Okay.
open in like the Business for All community, post it in the community. I'm not trying to be sort of vague, but there is a conflict of interest. If we sponsor a grant, I wouldn't be able to advise you on how to apply for
I
that
understand.
particular grant, right? But I think that we are a large community of folks who are willing and interested in helping. So if it's a Hello Alice grant, definitely post it in the community. Say, I'm looking to apply for this Hello Alice grant. Would someone be interested in helping craft my statement? Does this make sense? And if it's not a Hello Alice grant, one of the members of our team would probably be able to make some comments or recommendations. But I would recommend doing it in the community because that's what we're all here for, right?
Got you.
And
I
definitely
remember.
continue. Oh, sorry.
Oh.
Jenee, I was just going to add that Jenee's encouragement to keep calling out things as you see it. As we mentioned at the start of this webinar, we're listening and we're taking opinions and concerns into account when crafting our resources. So definitely keep sharing with us and with, all of your different communities.
That's right. And I see you have just your nice, holistic background. You got the botanica there, and lovely. Go ahead. But please, Jenee, before you forget again.
Yeah, I got it. There was something that you said that just made me think of another tip that I meant to share as well, which was about this idea of, maybe this $10,000 isn't going to necessarily it's not going to sustain your business, right? It's not going to be the thing that allows you to hire everyone back or take you necessarily to the next level of growth. But I think it's really important to be clear about that when you're applying for a grant, to recognize that, yes, this $10,000 isn't going to save my business, but is going to allow me to do this one particular thing. So it gets back to goals, activities, and resources. So this $10,000 is going to allow me to purchase or do this thing, which is related to this activity, which is related to this goal. And if there are other sources of funding that you have, to be able to articulate, I'm using these sources of funding to piece this together. So this is a part of a whole that is really critical for my success in this industry. So that's part of what I was saying around like disciplined, detailed, and organized, just to make those things really clear.
Thanks.
Thank you, Miguel. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, Jenee, we are at time, but if you have a couple more minutes, I'd love to just read off some of the other questions that we received in hopes that you can share a little bit more. Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry. So we actually do have Nancy on stage. She's
I'm sorry, Nancy.
Yes.
I'm so sorry, Nancy. So you can turn on your camera and go ahead and ask Jenee. Just wanted to make sure we were clear with keep continuing the webinar, but go ahead. Nancy, you can go ahead and start your camera. Turn on your camera if you'd like. Well, as we wait for Nancy, I can go ahead and ask another question and hopefully Nancy can join us. I will ask a question from one of our participants who said, when you have only 150 words to answer, what's the best way to answer when there are multiple questions? This is an example question from a grant. Tell us about you and your business. Why did you become a small business owner? What is the origin story of your business? So any tips on how to kind of make those points short and sweet when they have a word limit?
Yeah, so that's what I was saying about, making it personal. When we say tell us your origin story, we absolutely mean it. And the better you're able to connect yourself with your origin story to what you're doing today, how you got there, connecting those dots, statistically speaking, the more likely you are to receive funding, whether that's from Hello Alice or from an investor. And so that's really a really key statement crafting thing that you should hone and you should begin working on right now. I think it's a really great activity. So unfortunately, there's a webinar that LBAN is doing tomorrow. There's I'm trying to remember, there's like a whole other, I don't want to steal the whole hour of another presentation that we could do around crafting your story, but think about it. Stay tuned. But maybe just go ahead. The best advice I can give is pull up a Word document, word vomit, put everything out there, start editing down, get yourself down to 200 words, let other people read it. I think that's one of the, getting back to that issue around, other people would deserve it, or this fear around letting other people know our stories. There's no shame. There's absolutely nothing wrong with letting someone else know. And I say that because I know someone who applied for a grant recently who refused to let their co-founder read any of it because they were too sort of worried or ashamed or embarrassed about it. There's nothing. That's 100 other people are about to read this, right? So why don't you let someone close to you in your life read that statement and provide their feedback and opinion. It's okay. It's a scary thing. It makes you feel vulnerable, but it will make you better in the end. It will make them better for knowing more about you and who you are, and be able to connect with you. And you have the potential of connecting with an investor or a grantor or someone who can help you with your business.
And just the power of being able to have that description concise and almost have your elevator pitch for your business so valuable, way beyond the grant application.
Someone shared, like, if you have to, when you're doing something like that, imagine you're putting it on Twitter. It's like, good.
Yep. Try to put it in a tweet and see if it works. And then you're ready for your applications. Another question we received is, it was mentioned in the presentation that funders want to know your team. Does that mean being a solopreneur hurts you?
I don't think it hurts you. I think it's related to eligibility criteria. So there absolutely could be a grant where you wouldn't be eligible to apply because you're a solopreneur. But in that case, I would say think about the people that have helped you get to where you are. And maybe you have some friends or family or volunteers or some interns that you've worked with, or someone that has helped you along the way. Because this idea of demonstrating a community to stand behind, I think there's this sort of, I was talking to someone recently about this idea of what's a good bet. And so I think that we have these very antiquated ideas on what it means for someone to be the safe investment, and are they going to be successful? And my argument would be that has nothing to do with money. I mean, if a business goes under, who's to say that's not a failure, because you learn something in that process, and there's a good chance that you're a serial entrepreneur. Maybe you're going to start up again, right? You're going to try something new. And so in this world, we should be absolutely open and willing to accept the tries, and those are not failures. So my point is that if you can help we're unfortunately still living in a world with some kind of antiquated ideas around what success means. And so it's a delicate balance. You have to be able to say, if I were to fail, that's the idea, is that there is a support group underneath you, that you have ways, because they're thinking about it as from an investment standpoint. A foundation or another investor doesn't want to give you $100,000 if 2 months from now you're going to go under, because in their minds that was a failure of an investment. So if you're able to demonstrate the ways in which you can lean on other people's expertise, you recognize that you alone don't know everything, but you have these people in your corner who can help advise you and carry you forward, that you stand a better chance of being able to explain that you've thought about this critically, and have the people and resources around you to bolster and hold up that $100,000 to help you to be successful. So it doesn't have to be from a staffing perspective. Think about it from a knowledge perspective, like who else has the knowledge and can help to advise you and to keep your business growing.
Love that. Thank you. One more question that we received from Isabel Castillo. What about pre-revenue companies? I've scrolled through award recipients and it seems they're biased to post-revenue companies. Any tips?
So that one more time.
What about pre-revenue companies? She wrote, I've scrolled through award recipients and it seems they're biased to post-revenue companies.
Very fair. That is a very accurate statement. We at Hello Alice, right, we're working with our partners, and we sort of see ourselves as an expert advisor. And so when they're crafting their grant programs, we have the opportunity to say, Well, a lot of our small business owners really need this support to get started. So they don't have revenue to demonstrate to you that they are quote unquote successful, but that absolutely does not mean that they are not successful or will be successful. So we're requesting that those not be included in eligibility criteria, and I will continue to advocate for that. However, you're going to see that probably in lots of other places where it could potentially be an eligibility criteria. I would recommend when you see those things, write in, ask the question, are you sure? Is there any way, will there be an opportunity for it? And explain, like, these are the reasons why I deserve this grant opportunities. I think we just have to generate some more noise around it to show that dollars don't necessarily equate to success. And then I would say, just getting back to, it could very well be that folks who are pre-revenue maybe don't have the staffing and resources and time and people to dedicate to putting together a really well thought out grant application, right? So it may not necessarily be that it's pre-revenue folks were precluded. It could be related to where they are in their phase, and maybe they just might not have as many applications from pre-revenue businesses. So don't let that stop you. Absolutely apply. And think about demonstrating your motivation. You can't demonstrate growth with numbers and dollar amounts, right? But you can show the steps that you've taken, the things that you've done, the plans that you have, and you can knock them out of the park with your organization and your discipline and your ideas.
Love that. One more question, and then we'll begin to wind down. But Linda Robinson asked, when a grant asks for specifics on how you would use, say, $10,000 in grant money, is it best to list a few items or have one major objective?
Oh, great question. My recommendation would be to not go into the weeds on pennies, like not saying because if it's not asking for a true budget, then no need to say you're going to start detailing, I'm going to buy 123 stamps at 47 cents a piece, right? Do you know what I mean? But think about it in maybe some larger chunks. I gravitate towards grant applications that, if it's the $10,000 example, it's $5,000 is going to be spent on marketing and SEO optimization. $2,000 is going to be spent on office supplies that are required for X, Y, and Z, or mailing of these things. And $3,000 is going to be spent on, a bonus for my intern or something. So I think somewhere in the middle, like it's hard if you just say, I'm going to use $10,000 and then just start listing everything under the sun. So try to be really focused, especially since, like I mentioned, $10,000 isn't enough to hire a new staff member, right? So think differently when you're applying for a smaller grant application. If you're going for $10,000, really be hyper focused on what you can do with that $10,000, because and it could, maybe you really absolutely 1,000% need to just throw that into the rent and utilities bucket to get you over the hump, to get you for that month. And if that's what you need, and you can clearly articulate that need, then say that, absolutely. But sometimes we have this, we start thinking a little bit too broad, and you need to think about the grant. So think about that's why I said goals, activities, resources. Look at all of them across the board. Where can you plug in $10,000? Where will it be meaningful? Versus a $100,000 grant, where can I plug in that? What would I do if I had $100,000? Those should be different things, right? You should not use the exact same grant application for those two things, because it's a different kind of resource, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Okay, before I go to you for closing remarks, just want to share again for everyone to check out the links that Jillian has been sharing throughout in the chat. Jillian, if you wouldn't mind, if you could share those one more time in the chat, specifically to our small business grants hub. So you guys, we talked a lot about small business grants today, and you are dying to know, the different types that are available. So that's an easy way to see the grants that Hello Alice is hosting right now and other grants that are available to you. So I encourage everyone to check that out today, and also stay tuned for more. Like we mentioned, we're hoping that this is just the beginning. We're going to keep doing these webinars and workshops so that, we can help you navigate small business grants. And, we're going to gather your feedback and see what we go to next. We want to talk about how to tell your story and also about kind of diving into all of the different types of small business grants available and how to find them and how to find the ones that are best for you. So those are some things we have in the pipeline for you, but feel free to let us know. Tell us in the Business for All community on Hello Alice. Make sure to sign up on Hello Alice if you have not already. Share with us on social media, send us a DM. It's me reading those. So I want to know what you guys have to say about what you learned today and what you want to see from us in the future. As a reminder, we record these workshops and webinars. So make sure that you're signed up for our newsletter and signed up on Hello Alice. You can get access to this recording later on if you want to, go over it again and take some better notes and engage in the community with some of the questions that we weren't able to answer. Ask those questions. We will look at those questions, and hopefully other members of your small business community will chime in as well. And before we say bye, I just want to give the virtual mic to Jenee. If you have any last remarks, what's the one thing you want everybody to take home today?
Well, I want to say that I'm overwhelmed by I just love this sort of chat community and the folks that are reaching out to each other and connecting and sharing. And I just want to remind everyone that you have a community even if you're a solopreneur, and think beyond one of the good things, at least about COVID, is it brought us all together virtually, right? So now we're able to connect with folks halfway across the world that you might not have been able to before. I saw someone sharing that they said, I'm not a pro writer, but I can copy edit. And I just love the sort of the hope and the confidence and the support that we're finding. And that to me is what Hello Alice is, that we're all here to help and support each other. So please reach out on our communities. I want to maybe start getting folks sharing more information inside of those communities. Share what you want to put in your grant applications. I know it sounds silly, but what's the thing about rising tides? We should be here to all lift each other up together. There you go. And I think I'm probably done talking now.
That's amazing. But yes, Jenee, thank you so much. Thank you to our community of small business owners, for everyone who attended. We can't wait to see how you guys continue to thrive, and we'll see you at the next one. Thank you all so much. Have a beautiful day.